The opinions expressed by the host and guests on Where Did the Road Go are their own and not necessarily those of WVBR or its management. This is Where Did the Road Go? Our aim is to explore the fringe, to be true skeptics and question openly, to investigate the paranormal, bring light to the dark corners of history, and give a voice to the shunned of science. We deal in mystery and the important questions that these subjects bring to light. What is reality? Who are we? And why are we here? Join us on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com for a full show archive, links to all our social media, upcoming schedule, and much, much more. Now, join your host Soraya on this week's edition of Where Did the Road Go? Welcome to the show. A couple things to get to before we get into our interview for this week. First of all, if you're a Doctor Who fan, and I'm sure some of you are, I conducted an interview with Aaron Gullius, who's been a guest on the show a couple of times already, and a comedy musician by the name of Devo Spice, who is a regular on my underground music show, The Last Exit for the Lost. And we talked about Doctor Who. Devo's written a concept album on Doctor Who, and Aaron has written a book and a recent article on Doctor Who. And so we had a hour-and-a-half long conversation on Doctor Who, its cultural impact, what got them interested, the history of the series, and so on and so forth. If you're interested, I did post it to the Where Did the Road Go Facebook page. If you can't find it, you can go to thelastexit.org and click on interviews, and it's in there. I thought maybe some people might be interested, especially with Aaron being involved. I still plan on doing a listeners' stories show for the very last show of this year. I don't plan on doing them very often, so if you have a story you want to tell, get in touch with me either through the Facebook page or through the website, wheredidtheroadgo.com. Incidentally, you can also find the Facebook page that way as well. And let me know, and we'll set up a time to talk and record your story for the show. And between now and then, I should have some really interesting guests for you. All right, so tonight's interview is with a guy named Rick Waid. And Rick considers himself a seer, as in S-E-E-R. He started out doing paranormal investigation, recording EVPs, which we check out a bunch of, and they are actually quite impressive for EVPs. There's a lot of crappy EVPs out there, and his were pretty good. Wasn't sure what to make of him at first. I enjoyed his book. It's not heavy reading by any means, but it was quite entertaining and shows you, he seemed very honest and genuine in the book and showed you kind of the dark side of paranormal investigating, not so much the entities you encounter, but the way it can kind of take control of your life. Definitely worth a read, and we talk about that a little bit. We talk about how he transitioned from just recording EVPs and doing paranormal investigation into being able to do actual psychic work. Somewhere near the end of the show, I allow him to do a reading on me, something I don't normally allow. And I have to say he was somewhat accurate. And after the show, I'm going to get to a couple of points on that. I'd rather people hear what he had to say first. And actually, my response to one of those things was completely wrong, and I didn't realize it till a little bit later. So, at the end of the show, I will clarify on that. This was recorded back on October 16th, and here we go with Rick Waid. All right, so Rick, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Now, you've written a book called My Paranormal Journey, correct?
Correct.
Okay, when did this come out?
This November 19th will make 1 year.
Okay. I found it very easy to read and kind of hard to put down.
Oh, okay. That's a good thing.
Yes, it is. It's you lay it out very honestly when you wrote this, or so it seems.
Yes, definitely.
Because you put the good and the bad in there, and you just kind of like relayed what happened to you.
Correct.
And it seems like you had a mix of things going on in your life for the. How long has this been now that you've been doing this?
Well, I think it's about 6 or 7 years when I started doing it.
And what got you into it in the first place?
I started watching a ghost hunter show on TV, and I was pretty impressed with it, and I was really excited about it. So I just started watching it every night and was with my wife, and then all of a sudden my son came down and wanted me to come and look at an old abandoned house down the road. So I went down there and looked at the old house. And he had some friends there and stuff, and I walked around the house. It was kind of creepy old house, and had a really creepy backyard. Had like a swampy area in the back, and it was the last house on the left. So I know it's kind of weird, huh? So I went around the other side of the house, and I seen this shutter door open up on the second floor. And I said, just like the ghost hunter said, hey, if there's any spirits here, close the door. I was just, throwing out a phrase to him. And the door shut for me. I was blown away. So I ran and got a video camera, which I really wasn't good with video cameras. I didn't even know what I was doing. But I came back with a video camera, and then I brought my son-in-law, and I asked the door to open for me. I asked it twice, and it opened for me. So, and I was probably about, I don't know, 45, 50 feet away, and it still opened for me, and it opened really creepy sound, and I got that on videotape. So that really was the start of getting into the paranormal field because I was so blown away with that video.
Oh, yeah, I guess that would do it. What was the ghost hunting show?
It was the Ghost Hunters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right. The original.
the original, yes.
Do you still watch ghost hunting shows?
Very rarely, very rarely.
Okay. What changed? Just get tired of them?
Well, I watched it for a little while, then I decided to go on my own adventures. And then I was realizing, the more that I did what I was doing, the more it didn't really relate to the shows. It seemed like they wasn't hearing the stuff I was hearing. They would go like all night long and hardly get any EVPs, and here I was getting up to like 30 EVPs a minute. So,
A minute.
yes,
Wow.
it was crazy to the point where they were talking to me so much. I was getting so addicted to that recorder. That's all I wanted to do was listen to those voices.
And this didn't have a good effect on your marriage, did it?
No, it was horrendous. It got to a point where I almost lost my job because I was using the recorder in people's houses that I worked at. And I had actual police come to my house, sheriff, and talk to me about that. And then my wife, she took the recorders away many, many times, but somehow I always found them, or I went back out and bought more. So I was really addicted. It was like all I wanted to do, and I felt it was like a drug addiction. I had to have it, no ifs or
Hmm.
buts.
And your wife put up with this all this time?
It was rough. It's still rough right now because it changed from whatever I was. It just kept progressing from just the filming to the actual digital camera to the actual videotaping to the audio recorder to me actually being able to see and hear and feel. So it just kept growing and growing and growing, and it just isn't stopping.
Now, you said that you had trouble finding people who were interested in this stuff originally.
Well, see, the thing is, whenever I started, I actually joined a couple of paranormal groups, and I was bringing my EVPs to them, and the thing is, they couldn't understand them. They couldn't hear them. And what's really weird, because I could hear so much on a recorder, and I did some research on it and figured out what the problem was, is I have a special hearing in my left ear because I had Bell palsy for a while, for 3 months. And somehow that hearing in my left ear got just way better than my right ear. So I'm hearing at a 38-year-olds in my right ear, and I'm hearing at a 9-year-olds, a 10-year-olds in my left ear.
Hmm.
So it was really, really crazy because I was hearing these voices in my left ear and not in my right ear. So see,
Wow.
I was hearing at a different frequency in my left ear. So I was hearing all these EVPs and they couldn't even hear them until I mentioned it to them, and then they're like, "Oh my goodness, there it is." Because it is there, but they could never hear it. So I couldn't understand what was going on with me.
Yeah, and you sent me a handful of them. We're going to hear in a little while, and they are very good EVPs. They're very clear, and they're some of them are kind of creepy.
Definitely, definitely, and that's the thing, I actually took a crowd of people, and what I did is I practiced with this EVP stuff, and I would take 10 people, and I would play the recorder, and I'm telling you, out of the 10 people, one might have heard what I heard, but then that right there validated what I heard, and if he's hearing it, then I'm hearing it, then it's got to be on there, and then after I played it back, after we said what was on there, everybody heard it, so I did experiments on this stuff.
And it's kind of weird that you get so many EVPs, because I don't think I've ever heard of anyone getting them as easily as you have.
Well, it was to a point, and I'll tell you what, I go right now. I went to a paranormal conference in Ohio, and the people that listen to their recorders, they record left and right, and they do not hear it. I can take their recorder, and boom, they are coming to me left and right. I can hear them all the time
And why do you think that is?
because I'm actually connected better to the other side.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes some sense, I suppose. Um, Now you joined this paranormal group, but you didn't stick with them, did you?
No, I did not. No. I joined them because, it was to the point where I was just pushed on the back burner. And even though I got evidence on what their psychics and their mediums got. I mean, their psychics and medium would come in there and they would get all this information, and then boom, my audio recorder would validate all their information. So it could have been a really great situation, but somehow I was always pushed in the back burner, and I just got to the point where nobody would listen to me. They wouldn't put my recordings on their website or anything. But so I kind of I said, hey, I'm just gonna do this by myself again. So that's what I ended up doing. That's why I was a one man obsession because I couldn't really get anybody to work with me, which is kind of weird.
And yeah, especially with the popularity of it after the ghost hunting shows all started.
Correct.
And you didn't just bring your recorder into someone's workplace. Didn't you say in the book? I think it said you got in trouble because you were talking about it as well,
Yes.
and they seemed open to it and then complained.
Yes. I would talk to them about it, and the next thing you know, I'd be getting a call that I opened my mouth in a house. So I had two warnings. The next warning would be fired. So there would be no more warnings. So I have been really quiet for like 5 years.
Now, would you presented some ideas in here that doing this stuff can be a little bit dangerous?
Yes, it can. Definitely. It got to a point where all I could do was think about EVPs. So that's I was going into places where I shouldn't be going and doing things where I shouldn't be doing. I was not getting the correct permission or anything. I was sneaking in these old abandoned places where they was falling apart. So I could have died, fell in a well, or anything. So and I did it by myself. I didn't go with other people. And whenever I did bring other people, the problem was the energy wasn't acting like it does when I'm alone. So I was getting way more information and way more stuff whenever I'm by myself. When I brought other people, it seemed like they didn't want to do anything.
Hmm. What would be one of the creepiest things you had happen to you?
One of the creepiest things that happened to me on an investigation,
Yeah.
well, I would have to say, whenever I was out in a house, I was relaxing, and all of a sudden I heard a person running around the outside. And I said, man, I am caught. I'm in trouble. It freaked me out, scared me. He ran around the side. You can hear him run around the side, running up to the back door and walk in, and there was nothing there. That actually freaked me out.
Hmm. Well, I guess that would do it. Let's hear one of these EVPs. So tell us about that EVP. Where did you get it?
Well, that EVP, I was actually working on whenever I first started doing EVPs, I wanted to help any way I could with missing person cases. So I actually did a recording on an old missing person's house where the person was missing, and I did this on the actual porch. I did a recording. And because I know as soon as I came near a place, I turned on my recorder because spirits were talking, and that's where the actual audio came from. Was on the porch of where the person was missing, and it was really weird because she actually had a younger brother about that age at that time frame when she went missing.
Hmm. Okay. Now you've tried to help with missing person cases before. Have you had any real success with that?
Well, I've actually with the audio, amazing results. Yes, I worked on many, many cases in my area, worked with family members, and the information that came through, they validated all the stuff that came through on the recorder. Even though they didn't hear it, they validated the information. So, yes, I helped out a lot of people.
And you did bring some of the stuff to the police.
Yes, I actually went to the police station, gave them the information. They listened to the audio, said they couldn't hear nothing. Said for me to go out and grab them a shoe from the missing person, and then they would believe me. I'm like, okay, it's been 30 years. Where am I going to get a shoe?
And didn't you say at one point they thought maybe you were involved with it because you had information?
Well, I actually went down. Well, it made me kind of nervous because I'm offering this information. I went on another case, and they actually took me, and I went down to the police station. I took my audio recorder in there. I played it for the sheriff, the chief of police, and he said, "There's definitely something there, but I can't hear it." Then they had one of his deputy, a female, came in, and he played it, and she heard it. So that right there got me in a door into the police station. And they took me around, all around the whole area where this missing girl, well, they found her, but this missing girl was. And I got like 105 EVPs in like an hour, which was really good. And I sent it back to the police department. They never did get back with me, but some of the information on what I gave them, they were actually doing on the case within a week. So it was connecting.
And so, of course, that made you slightly suspicious to them.
Yeah, because they never came to me and they never said anything else to me. And then I actually went back down there again, and then the guy asked me about another case, about another missing person, which I'm like, how did he know that? Which was kind of weird, because I sent this actually to the police department in another city, probably about 50 miles away, but they had information about it. So it was kind of like, oh boy, well, what do they think I'm a weirdo or something?
They're watching you.
Yes, definitely.
Um, but they never actually used any of your information to do anything.
Not as far as I know, but whenever I started getting into the seeing part, I worked with psychic teams, which was like 50 to 60, 70 people on a team. And we would all give information about what we see, hear, and feel about the missing person. And I've got information, it was right on target. Information about the killer, about the person, how it happened, everything. Down to a point where I did a reading on these two young kids. And what happened there was I kept seeing seven and bridges. And all throughout my read, I kept seeing seven and bridges. But see, there was nobody really there taking control and saying, okay, well, this guy has brought up seven and bridges 10 times. Maybe we should look at that. Well, 6 months later, they found the two children in the town of Seven Bridges, right by the
Wow.
riverbank where I said.
Nice, nice. Um, let's hear this EVP. That's is it Jack Bauer cracked my head?
Yes.
Jack Bauer cracked my head.
And where is that from?
That was actually this is actually another case where I actually worked with this lady and went down there because her husband got killed. And this EVP came through in the house. And he actually had his head cracked. And he died on the property. So it was really weird. And that was actually his favorite movie was Jack Bauer. It was just really weird how it all worked out. But yeah, it's really clear EVP too.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's move on to Cheryl Remembered because this was another very clear. All of these are actually very clear.
Yes.
And they all sound different. So let's try Cheryl Remembered.
Okay.
All right, and where did you get that one?
That was just in an old abandoned house. I did a lot of research in old abandoned houses. And what I would do is actually take my recorder, and these abandoned houses are away from nowhere. They're usually down, dirt roads. And I just would leave my recorder, and then I would take off and come back, an hour later or something. And then I would just go back and listen to that audio. I mean, I would listen up to like 12 hours straight on audio to hear what was on there. And it would just come on, just out of the blue. There's nobody around. And the thing is, if you listen to the audio, you could hear me leaving in my car, and you can hear me coming back in my car. So the audio was in between. There was no other vehicles coming in there. So it's kind of cool.
But at the same time, if you're just leaving it there, you can't be 100% sure somebody didn't wander in.
Well, that's the thing. See, I got to a point where my listening ability, I could hear almost everything happening in the actual house. I mean, you can actually hear the floorboards if somebody walked. Because see, I usually would put this stuff like in between, like on a set of steps, in between two walls, where if you, that's why I got really good with EVPs because I really studied them, and you would be able to hear somebody walking around in the house on the recorder because you can hear me walking on the recorder whenever I picked it up. So see.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. Let's do the do.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
For some reason, I'm getting short bangs. For some reason, blonde, short bangs, kind of shoulder length hair.
So what was that one?
I was describing a actual spirit that was in the post town school in Ohio. I was actually feeling the energy of the spirit, and I was describing this young girl, and that's when this voice came through, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird little sing-songy thing.
Hmm.
And you have another one like that. What was the other one like that?
Now, the other one was another song, and it was in one of the other house I did research is my sister-in-law's house, and I just put the recorder in one of the rooms, and we all packed up, locked the doors, and went to the park. And then we came back, and I listened, and there's a guy in there doing that weird song, and I still can't figure out what song that is.
So let's hear that. All right. So yeah, it's not a distinct song. It's just a weird sing-songy little thing.
Hmm.
Hmm. All right. Now this is the one I'm not hearing anything on. You sent one called Ghost Sneezed,
Hmm.
and I don't hear a sneeze.
Really, it's clear as day for me.
Huh. Let's hear that, and here we go. All right, and it's a very short one.
Right.
And I hear a little digital pip at the end of it. But I didn't, all right. Well, maybe other people heard it. So let's move on to Goodnight Baby.
Hmm.
Let's hear that, and then you can tell us a little about that one. All right, tell us about that one.
Okay, I was researching a hotel. One of my researches of a hotel. It was an old abandoned hotel, and they was remodeling it. And I went upstairs into this one room, and it's obvious it was a small room. And what they was doing is making it into like apartments instead of being a hotel. And it looked like, it was a small room, so I'm assuming it was a child's room. And what I feel what I'm collecting here is actually sometimes I think I'm collecting maybe like a loop in time. At one point this guy came up there and said to his daughter, "Good night, baby." And I think EVP sometimes will loop themselves, and then I say if it happened 50 years ago, it might come at a certain time frame, and that audio might come back.
Or that the area itself just remembers and replays events.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And I mean that's obviously one of the theories on some ghosts. If they're not interacting with you, you might just be picking up residuals.
Correct.
It could also be something. I mean, if you get a little more speculative, it could be something from another dimension.
Right. And it could be.
I mean, it's hard to say to really define what these are, even though they could be specific. It could be that you get lots of them because you're also imprinting on the device itself psychically.
And that could be, and another thing. What was interesting is when I first started doing EVPs, it was just a lot of voices came through, and I just really couldn't put all the pieces together. They never made any sense because I didn't understand what I was doing at the time. And then later on, when I started working on special cases and stuff with people or past loved ones or anything, I would just go to the house and say, let me just do a recording. And I walk through their house, come back, offer the information that's on there, and they would like grab their mouth because it would be a direct connect, I call it. See, a direct connect is where it actually connects to the house or connects to the individual that passed. So that's what I call direct connect. So what I was doing is slowly I was getting more advanced with audio to where I was getting direct connect. I could ask a question, I would get a response.
Okay. Let's try the baby wailing. Tell us where you found this one.
Well, see, that's I do roadside research, okay?
Okay.
And a lot of times I'll go to a crash where a child or grown up or people had passed away, and you'll see the crosses there. And what I'll do is I'll sit there and I'll leave the recorder there and I'll back off a little ways because I usually do this late at night. I'll back off a little ways and leave the recorder there and then come back and look at it. And that's where I got it, was at an actual where the a crash happened and where the little child did pass.
Okay, so this is baby wailing. All right, and again, very crystal clear, very easy to hear. And these aren't scratching noises that you're
Yeah, like rubbing or anything like that.
Yeah, you're. These are very distinct sounds. Are most of your EVPs like that?
I say majority are. See, whenever I do research for people and they bring in their information, they have EVPs on here like this, like I give you. They just don't know it's there because it's not there. They can't hear it, which is kind of
Huh.
crazy. They just can't hear it until I bring the information. I said, listen, it's right here. And by George, it is right there. And they just can't hear it because they're not trained to hear these EVPs. They're really not. You have to actually be trained. I trained myself for a whole year of listening every day, almost 24 hours a day to an audio recorder. I trained my ear to hear everything. So, I could hear what it was and tell what it was.
Now, one of the stories you tell in the book is how you had stopped at one of these roadside graves and something followed you home.
Yes. Well, yeah, well, it was Ben. And what happened is, I didn't never notice this cross. I've been driving this place probably hundreds of times, and all of a sudden, boom, there he was in my face, and it was a cross, and it had been on it, only been on it like 98. That's what it had been 98. It's in the book, and I went and took my recorder over there, and I started recording, and I heard the car door open, and I could even say it as I'm recording and I'm saying it because I even had that recording where I said, I heard you get in my car. So he got in my car. And he must have stayed with me for a while because I went back and researched. And then all of a sudden, miles away, I get a call from one of my workers and he says, I'm lost. Can you help me find my way? Can you look on the map? So I pull into a graveyard miles away and I just go in there, drive in there a little ways and I park and I give them the information and I don't know who Ben 98 is. I don't know where he's from. It's just a cross, there's nothing else on there. No last name. So I lift up my head. I'm like, I can't believe it. Right in front of me is Ben 98. His tombstone is right in front of me. Now,
Wow.
come on. You know what I mean? It blew me away.
It's, wasn't there another one, however, that followed you home as well?
Well, many followed me home. I'll be honest
Okay.
with you.
All right.
Because I came from a graveyard one time and I came back home and I pull in my driveway and the lights turn on in front of me. My actual outside lights. They turn right on. Both of them. And then my whole family's asleep. As soon as I pull in the driveway, they both turn on. But yeah, a lot of energies follow me. I didn't understand it because I'm excited, thrilled. I want to communicate. I'm having a good time. I'm getting action. And then, I didn't know, but I was bringing a lot of energies home. And things were happening at home that was not the greatest, I'll be honest with you.
Like what?
Well, my son started having night terrors. And it got to a point where he would run around the house, try to run out of the house. We could not control him. He was really freaky. He was like a totally different person. And he would be yelling and screaming and hollering and running through the house. And just the interaction with me and the family is like they shut me out or I shut them out. So bad luck was happening. I got 15 times I got pulled over in 1 year, which is
Huh.
ridiculous. I never got a
Wow.
ticket once, but I got pulled over. They was harassing me. It's like, I used to win every day on the radio. I lost all that. I was getting flat tires. I was having bad days. I'm telling you, it was getting rough. That's because I was getting too much involved with the EVPs.
Okay. Anything negative, like any negative entities ever attach themselves to you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I had an audio. Um, well, I'll tell you what happened to me. I'll tell you a story. What happened? I felt, I got to the point where I was lying to my wife a lot because I wanted to go ghost hunting instead of, saying I was going karaoke. I was going ghost hunting and sneaking out to do ghost hunting. But I came home and it seemed like I was in my own house and things were happening where I could hear moaning and groaning, really creepy noises. And
Hmm.
I was up at my mother-in-law's one time and something jumped on me in the trailer. I was in a trailer, in a camper trailer. And the audio on that beforehand was telling me, I got from the house, said, kill them or kill them, kill them, kill them. I'm like, why am I getting this? And all of a sudden, something jumps on me and starts climbing up my leg. Freaked me out. I ran upstairs, got in the bed, laid down in the bed, and the bed started trembling for hours. So, see, I was kind of freaky. So, there was some weird stuff going on. And even though I told everybody, they just blew it all off. They didn't want to talk about it, they didn't want to communicate with me. All this amazing stuff was happening. You know, it was just kind of sad. I had to deal with it by myself.
And when that happened to you, how did you get it off of you?
Well, it just stayed with me until it wanted to go, probably. Well, I
Ah,
well I'll tell you what happened. What really happened to get rid of the negative energy that was around me is I was doing research at a church, an old abandoned schoolhouse, and when my vehicle got stuck, and then this guy came around to pull me out. It was the middle of a winter, a bad storm, and he couldn't pull me out. But this other guy came out, and he said, "I can pull you out." I said, "Okay, well, go ahead and try it." But he said, "Don't give it any gas. Just relax. I can get you out." And he pulled me out like nothing. I don't know how he did it, but I know how he did it. But the thing was is when he got me out of there, I was blown away. I'm like, because the other guy couldn't pull me out. He had the same vehicle. So I went up to him and he hands me a brochure and says, "Stop doing what you're doing." It was a brochure about God. Get right with God. And then after that, I started seeing all these green Bibles everywhere. Everywhere I went, there was a green Bible. It was like God was like saying, "Listen, drop that recorder and come to me." And that's what I started doing. I started slowly getting rid of the recorder. And then as soon as I started getting away from the recorder, I got another gift where I started seeing and hearing and feeling. But I did use the recorder, but only as validation on what I was seeing. I would record ahead of time and say, "Listen, I'm going to drive up to this house and there's going to be a green car and it's going to have rust on the left side of the door and a cracked windshield. So I'll drive to my next job and I'll see the green car in there with the rust on the left side and the cracked windshield." And I'm like, wow, I was pre-seeing things. So I was way more excited about that than the audio because a lot of times the audio was like blah, blah, blah. Some of the stuff wouldn't even make any sense. So the vision part was really, really cool because it was so accurate, right on
hmm.
target.
All right. Well, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment with Rick Waid. The opinions expressed by the host and guests on Where Did the Road Go are their own and not necessarily those of WVBR or its management. Where Did the Road Go can be heard first and usually live on WVBR Saturday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. Go to wheredidtheroadgo.com to ask questions of our live guests through the chat room. Where Did the Road Go is then re-aired on Dark Matter Radio and Deprogrammed Radio. You can download all shows for free on the website, and you can subscribe to us on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, or Vimeo. Additional content can be found on our video channels. You will also find our upcoming schedule, book reviews, blogs, free book downloads, links, and more. We are also on Facebook and Twitter, and if you want to help support the show, there are links to donate to us. Everything you need can be found at wheredidtheroadgo.com. All right, Rick, so where can people find you online?
Facebook.
Facebook, is that the best place?
Facebook's the best place. I do have a website, theseerrickwade.com, and that's basically all of my reads and all of my videos and all of my radio shows and everything I've done over the last 7 years is on there.
Okay. And we got two more EVPs here. This one was kind of interesting. He gonna whip him.
Hmm.
Tell us a little about this before we hear it.
Okay. I was actually out doing some work on my job, and right next door to them was a little dinky house. I mean, it was really small, probably about 15 to 20, 20 by 20. It was really dinky. It was the whole house. So I put the recorder on the edge of the windowsill because it was broken glass, and I went over and did my work next door, and I came back and picked up the recorder. So as I'm listening, I'm like, all of a sudden it gets silent, and this man comes on, says he gonna whip him, and he sounded like he was from the South, which is kind of interesting because at the place where I was at, I didn't see anybody around there, and there wasn't a lot of people from the South around there, and he sounded like a black man. So I did research years later and found out that a lot of people moved up there from the South and actually worked in the fields. So.
All right, well, let's hear it. All right, and that's another very clear one. And the other one we have here is you talk about getting this one in your book. This is the train sound.
Yes.
And so tell people about this before we hear it.
Okay, this was one in the house that I researched, and this was the first EVP, one of the first EVPs that I got. It was really cool because I put this recorder in there, and all of a sudden I got this audio recording saying, "Give Anne a sedative," and you can hear him shock her body, and you can hear her pop around on the box springs, and then another man says 1.5. Well, later on in that audio, I listened to it and I started hearing this train. I'm like, what the heck? There's a train here. I'm like, okay, that's really cool. Well, right by the house used to be a train track, and it's a bike path now, where people ride their bikes. But it used to be a track about 50 years ago. So I was picking up that train that used to go by there 50 years ago. Now that
Wow.
is really cool.
All right, so let's hear the train. And that one, it's it's hard to tell what it is, but by the time it gets to the end, it definitely sounds like a train.
Yeah, it gets going, don't it?
And I mean, that's crazy. Some of the fact that you're just getting these so easily, even when you're not there,
Hmm.
is is fascinating. Now, you had also said something about, I think you were speculating that people, you need a certain ability to be able to hear some of these. That not everyone's going to be able to hear all of them. It's not just in your ear, but maybe in the idea of being a seer, you're picking up more stuff than other people might.
And that's true. And I've tested this. I did this at a paranormal research at the post town. I actually took a paranormal team and I brought them into the room, and they gave me this little microphone thing where I can put my recorder in there where it will make it loud. So I played the recorder for like 10 people there, and nobody heard it. I wrote down what it's supposed to have been said, okay? And then nobody heard it. They could hear something there, but they can't hear it. And then another one of my assistants came in that actually helps me run one of my sites. She came in and she listened to the audio, and she's a seer too. And she listened to it and she told it right off the bat exactly what it said. So they all said, "No, I didn't hear that." So I turned over my paper and it's exactly what she said. And then we replayed it, and everybody was blown away because it's there. They just couldn't hear it.
Interesting. And you also said something about going back and hearing EVPs that weren't there the first time.
Well, when I first started, I didn't understand EVPs. But I met a person later on in life that was an EVP specialist. She calls herself a specialist because she hears different. And she even heard different than what I was hearing. But what happens with an EVP, just like in a murder case or something, or missing person, the EVP was giving me, like, say, for instance, it said, the man hit me in the head. Then later on, the recording would change and said, um, he was 5 foot tall and had a mustache. But see, I didn't understand it because I didn't put two and two together. But the first part and the second part actually went together. But the EVP changed for me.
So do you think it changed on the actual recording?
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't just your hearing of it.
No, it would change. It would actually change. It got to the point where I could actually play a recording and I would hear what it said, play a recording, it would change it, play a recording, it would change it. It got to the point where it could change 5 or 6 times. And it really made me kind of upset because how is this going to help me working on any missing person cases if it's going to change like that? The police are like, okay, well, you're a nutcase.
Have you met anyone else who's had that happen to them?
Yeah, the lady that actually, that's the specialist that works out of Lansing. Yeah, she does the same thing. But see, the thing is, nobody ever knew about that. Even reverse EVPs, nobody really paid attention to reverse EVPs, but they give another story too. A lot of times, the EVP in reverse will be completely plain and talking about more of the story on the front of the EVP.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. I've never even heard of running them backwards.
Mm. It's amazing what you can hear with an actual recorder of you run it backwards. Even on some ones I gave you, if you reverse it, you might be surprised what comes through.
I might have to check that out. Um, Now, you call yourself a seer. How do you define that?
Well, basically, what it is I when I do readings for people, I can like basically see through their eyes. I can think of something like seeing through their eyes. I can actually be that person. For say, if I'm reading a person in, say, California, and she loves, let's say, for instance, she has a beautiful garden, and she loves red roses, her whole garden of red roses. I will actually read the person, and all of a sudden, I will kind of like walk out their door and see all the red roses. So it's kind of like I'm seeing through that person. But then I do the same thing with past loved ones, where I can read a past loved one and I actually bring direct information about that past loved one, what they saw, how they felt, what they did. It's kind of like that. And, I've actually worked on cases across seas, missing person, and I gave them a description of what I was seeing. And I'm telling you, they sent me a picture back, and this was in India. And they sent me a picture back, and everything was direct details of the place where they went to search for the boy. It was crazy.
Okay. All right. Actually, do you want to try doing a reading on me?
Sure, I can do a reading on you.
All right.
Okay, let me see here. Um, First of all, first thing comes to me. I'm seeing. I don't know what's going on, but a younger image of you came to me whenever I first started seeing something. And the thing is, it was more like it was you and nobody else around. So I don't know. Maybe you was maybe you didn't hang out with as many people as a child, or maybe you didn't have a lot of friends. But it seemed like you was by yourself. Let me see here. And another thing came into me was something about automobiles. I don't know if you had either you were interested in automobiles, or because sometimes I just get either you hate something or you like something. But it's like when I'm sitting here, all of a sudden the automobile came in. So that was giving me information that you're actually connected to automobiles. Um, and, um, and another thing, I don't know what happened at 40. I don't even know your age, but 40 was told to me. So there was something going on at age 40, or there's a connection to 40 that was given to me. Um, and I don't know, I'm feeling a female around you. I feel there's a lady that's connected to you. I don't know if your mother's still around or not, but I feel there's a strong connection to a female um, that is around you. And you know what? Another thing I'm hearing is either clapping or dancing or happiness. Like I don't know if there was that's connected to you where you guys have something in the family where you have with the clapping and the dancing. Um, like a lot of people, like I don't know, like maybe Italians or something. They have like the dancing and the clapping, or maybe it's Polish. I don't know. Anyways, let me see here. I hear another thing, tardy. So I don't know if you was tardy a lot, or you're against being tardy. You're like you really want to be on time, but that is given to me too. That information there. And I'm hearing lost one. So I'm assuming that you lost somebody that was special or close to you. Um, I'm getting a weird name too around you, which is kind of weird because it's either Bernard. Bernard is coming through, a name Bernard.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when I get information, you got to actually pay attention to that and hold on to that information, because what will happen is this is how it works with me. You'll be driving down the road, or you'll be going to the grocery store, and then all of a sudden you'll be going through the line, and all of a sudden the clerk's name is Bernard, and then it will click with you. Do you understand what I mean?
Sure.
That's how it works with some of the stuff that I give people. So,
Well, I don't know what the clapping and dancing would be.
okay,
Most of the other stuff I can see, although I have no real interest in cars, cars end up being a big part of my life because I live in the middle of nowhere
okay,
and tend to have a lot of car problems.
okay,
So maybe that's it. I mean, it's hard to say because it wasn't specific
right,
enough. But most of the stuff, it wasn't wrong. I can say that.
okay.
So, and like I said, the clapping and dancing one, I really couldn't tell you.
Is there
At
something
least
coming
not
up?
related. Not related to family anyway.
Okay. You have something coming up though? Maybe
Like,
like I don't know, engagement, a party or something where this is
no,
gonna be happening?
nope.
Okay.
Totally not something that sounds like I would be involved in.
Okay.
But who knows? Maybe I'll end up in a situation where that's happening.
Well, you'll have to get back with me.
And I will. If that happens, I will definitely get back with you. I always feel that these things are kind of like any other sense. When you look at something, two people can look at the same thing and see something slightly different. You can look at something and see it wrong because your perspective was wrong. I think people expect psychic gifts to be perfect.
And they're really not. And I do test people with this stuff. And some people can actually read a picture really good, and some people can't read a name really good. So let's say, for instance, you have any past loved ones that you have like uncle, aunt, or something like that, that you have a name,
What do you mean?
like your father, your mother, or that passed away. Do you have anybody that's passed away that you would like for me to look into?
Not really,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Because see, that's what I do. I actually do off on my radio show. I actually people call in with their name of their past loved one, and then I offer what comes to me. So that's another thing I do. So
Okay, yeah, tell us a little more about your radio show. Is that the gist of it?
no, I do all kinds of stuff. I have authors on. I have anybody that I actually anybody that wants to come on my show. I have had people that were in the music business come on. I have, like I said, I have authors. I have paranormal investigators. I have psychics. I have mediums. Whatever they come on, and I just run a show and ask them questions, and we just have a good time. And it's a really good show. It's doing real good right now. It's growing.
And it's a podcast.
Yes.
And then where can people listen?
It is called Through the Eyes of the Seer. It's on Perispeak Network.
Okay, and what website wise?
It's on Facebook.
Okay, all right. The show is on Facebook.
Yes, you go through Facebook. Yes.
Okay, all right. And if they add you, Rick Waid, you have it on your Facebook as well.
Correct.
So let's your last name is spelled Waid.
Yes.
For anyone who is not completely sure on that.
Hmm.
Now, as these abilities developed, what else did you find yourself able to do?
Well, I was able to remote view. And what it was, see, I went on these big websites, psychic websites or paranormal websites, and I would offer and practice. And when I first started, it was tell me if I can let me see what's around you. That's what one of the titles was, and they would let me just read them, and I would just see certain things that are around them. Like for instance, I saw this one lady. I did after I started doing my remote viewing. I called it remote viewing because I didn't know what I was doing, but I was actually just seeing things around him. Even though it didn't really make, it wasn't that big of a deal, but if I can see something 1,000 miles away, and all of a sudden I'll say, okay, I see that you have a dishwasher that is lopsided, um, and the lid doesn't close very good, and that's exactly what was going on. How did I know that? I don't know, but it just was given to me. And then what happened is after I started doing that for a while, I started doing past lives, and I started reading people's past lives, and I just this one lady come and asked me, she said, listen, I've been having many issues with my neck. I've been to many doctors, spent a lot of money, and I was told that somebody can give me a past life read, it would help me. So I did a past life read on her. But see, I didn't know about her neck or anything issue because she never told me about it. But I gave her the read, and I told her that she fell off, one of the buggies or whatever, the wagons back in the days, and broke her neck. And then she came back and told me that's what the problem was. Her neck was killing her. She's been to all these doctors, nobody can figure it out. And then I started doing past life reads, and I'll tell you what, it was really weird because I was kind of like I was still seeing things, but seeing them in another time frame that was relating to their life now. So it was kind of interesting because said this one lady, I said, I keep seeing all kinds of you was in a fire, you got burned up, your back is really scarred, really, really, really bad. And then in her real life, she actually had scars all over her back from an actual water being tossed on her back, and burning her up. So it was really weird because, I was seeing what happened in the past, and it really was happening in the future with her in her current life. So it was kind of interesting because I was connecting in two ways with them, and it was very interesting.
So you're not using hypnosis or anything. You're just picking up the information by reading them.
Yeah, it's just like they'll say, just come on. I don't even need their real name, fake name, or whatever they just want to say. They just got to ask for read. And then I just go in and I zone in and I just start offering information. And some people say I just have a vivid imagination, but I'll tell you what, I did one read on a lady, which was really blew her mind because I read and I said, listen, she was connected to Mark Twain. She was the daughter of Mark Twain back in her past life, and she ended up losing one of her sisters to a drowning. She ended up drowning in a lake. And then I said she ended up breaking her leg going sliding down a hillside up against a tree. Well, in her real life, she actually did break her leg going down a hill and hit it on a tree and broke it. And then her sister actually did die and she drowned in a swimming pool.
So it wasn't so much a past life reading as a current life
It was a
reading.
current life reading, but it was really weird because I seen all this stuff that happened in the past life, and then whenever you looked up the information, by George, there it was. There was the guy, Mark Twain. His daughter actually did this stuff, and his other daughter died and drowned. It's just really crazy.
Hmm. Okay. So you don't do too many EVPs anymore.
No, I'm here to help people if they want to know about them because a lot of times I will go to these conferences and they will play the recorder and they won't hear nothing. And then I will take the recorder and explain to them, well, you got a lot of things on here. You're just not listening to them correctly. And then whenever I get done showing them, then they're like, wow, I never knew it was there.
Do you do it? Do you do a lot of conferences?
But no, I do them. So whenever, if I get invited or whatever, I'll go out there and do what I got to do. I sell the books and hang out with people and help them out, whatever I can do.
And is your wife more approving of this?
Well, she's going with me on Saturday. The whole family's going, so it's kind of a family event. But I'll be there doing my books and stuff, and there's all kinds of fun games, Dracula and Wolfman, and it's kind of cool.
Is your son interested in this stuff?
They actually don't want nothing to do with it. Even the
Oh,
wife really don't want nothing to do with it, and she's always claimed that I really have never had a gift, even though I've read over 3,000 people and worked on all these missing person cases and stuff. So she just don't want to get into it because I heard her kind of, I heard her a lot with all the lies and stuff whenever I was doing
right.
EVP recordings.
Hmm.
And obsessions are bad.
It almost seems like it behaved like an addiction for you,
Yes,
as much
yes.
as well as an obsession.
And the same with the readings. It was the same way. I was doing like 7 to 10 every day, and it's like that's all I wanted to do was read people. I didn't really care about my kids growing up. My wife had to do all the homework. She had to do all the bills. She had to do all the laundry. She had to do everything. While I just was, stuck reading people and was just blown away with it.
Before you got into the whole ghost hunting thing, were you at all interested in this type of stuff?
Well, see, my mom was a reader, and my brother, and my sister. So my mom could actually read coffee in the coffee grounds. She'd put coffee in a little water. She'd turn the cup around 3 times, and she could read the highs and the lows of the coffee and the darkness and lightness. She was a reader because we have Cherokee Indian in us, and we got that from the ancestors. And then my brother was able to hold. My sister was able to hold objects to her forehead and tell everywhere the object's been. And then my other brother could read spoons. He could actually have like 24 spoons he'd put up, and he'd light a candle in the back, and he could read the flickering in the actual spoons. So it's kind of interesting. I think what it was is it was kind of like a disguise for the recorder. You know what I mean? Same with me. It was a recorder there that I used it to help me to do what I needed to do, and then now I don't need it.
Hmm. Okay. Do your brother and sister still do stuff?
No, my sister is 100% religious, and she don't know if it's good or bad when she does it.
Ah, I see. And what about your brother?
My brother, he don't do any of it. No, he actually, what happened to him, he actually called me up one day and said, listen, I'm going to pass you my gifts. And he actually passed his gifts to me. And it made me way stronger, and I got way better, and things started happening better for me, more accurate. So,
So if you could go back, would you have changed any of this?
well, I'll tell you, honestly, It's it's I would say no because I've helped a lot of people. I've made a lot of people's lives different and opened their eyes and changed them. So I think yes, I did make a lot of mistakes, but I'm here now for them. I'm trying to make up for it.
Well, that, and if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else people should know about? Where can they get your book?
Well, they can get my book on Amazon and Kindle, and it's at Barnes and Noble. And Yeah, that's basically where you can get it from.
Okay, and the full title is what?
My Paranormal Journey, One Man's Obsession.
Okay. And you don't have, other than the stuff that's happening while this is airing, you don't have anything else coming up in the immediate future?
No, I'm actually going to be relaxing over the holidays, and I'm working on book two.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
What's book two going to be on?
it's going to be the seer journey. It's going to be about all of my working on all the missing person cases. And it's going to be dealing with how my ability started with the scene and how all of my different types of readings, how I advanced from one to another. I got to a point where I could actually, I do on my radio show, I'll have people like say in Arizona and I'm in Michigan, they'll go in Arizona and I'll do a radio show there and they'll have people in the audience and they'll put a whole bunch of names in like a little bucket and then they'll draw a name out and I'll read that person's past love life, our past loved one on air over there, which is kind of cool. So and then I read the buildings too, haunted buildings. I can read haunted buildings and stuff too. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I read the building over there and read the people. So it was a great show.
Okay, and how often is your radio show on?
It's on Mondays, 8 o'clock Eastern.
Okay, and how long of a show is it?
It's an hour show.
Okay, is it on like iTunes or stuff as well, or just
Yes, yes.
okay? And what's the name of it again?
Through the Eyes of a Seer.
All right. Well, I thank you, Rick. This has been fascinating.
Well, thank you very much,
And,
sir.
and yeah, thanks so much for talking to us.
Appreciate it.
So now to discuss Rick's reading of me. As I said, I wasn't completely accurate when I told him he wasn't right on a couple of things. So the first thing he suggests is that as a child I might have been a loner, and that's somewhat true. I did have friends, but I spent a lot of time by myself by my own choice. I tended not to fit in with everyone else, so okay. We'll accept that as a hit. As far as cars go, as I mentioned, I live out in the middle of nowhere, so cars are very important to me, and oftentimes you know, anyone who owns a car will tell you they always have problems, so cars do play a major part in my life, whether I care about them or not. Personally, I just like one that gets me from point A to point B. I'm not a big fan of fancy cars or anything like that. He suggests something big happened at 40. Well, maybe. I don't really remember. I don't pay a close attention to age, and stuff happens so much in my life. It's ever changing. So I can't say whether anything in particular happened at 40. Maybe it did. It probably did. Something probably happened at 40. The next one he suggests was kind of interesting. He said he felt a strong female presence around me. Right before he said that, I started focusing on a particular female presence. And that was the next thing he said. That was actually one of the most impressive parts of the reading right there, because of the timing. The next one, the clapping and dancing and happiness, he connected it to a family situation. I kind of understood what he was talking about, but what didn't come to mind, we had just started working with a band called Peaches and Crime, and they're kind of a vaudeville act, kind of a neo-vaudeville act with a dark sense of humor. And you know what? The clapping, the dancing, that whole shtick that he described to me that I had no identification for very well describes Peaches and Crime, whom I had on that Saturday on an afternoon show I did, and a week and a half later was at their CD release, and yeah, people clapping, dancing, and a very happy atmosphere was exactly what it was. So that was a pretty strong hit on his part, because I didn't get that at all. I didn't make a connection between this band and what he was describing. Maybe because he connected it to family, but it sounded like he was just trying to describe it better by doing that. If you want to check them out, Peaches and Crime, look them up on the internet. You can go to peachesandcrime.com. It's kind of interesting. The next thing he said was tardy, and I am known very much for being late. Not as much so as I have in the past, but my whole life I've generally late for things. Then he said something about having lost one. Well, I've lost various people in my life in one way or another, so that's kind of a vagary. I can't really say one way or the other. And the last thing he said was someone named Ben or Bernard, and I have no reference for that whatsoever. So, overall, his reading wasn't bad. He, I would say more hits than misses. Some of them were kind of vague, so it's hard to say. I mean, to say I was a loner as a child, yeah, I was, more or less. But there was nothing really specific to hang it on. The clapping and dancing was an impressive hit, as was the female around me that I was specifically focused on right before he mentioned. I would also like to say that until this interview, I had never spoken with Rick. He didn't really know anything about me. We had no familiarity whatsoever with one another. So props to Rick on that, and yeah, go check out his stuff.